Vanakkam. Welcome to this course on classics in neuroscience. In this series of videos, we have been looking at classic Nobel Prize winning works. In particular, in this series, we are looking at classic Nobel Prize winning works of Charles Sherrington. In this video, we will look at the review paper by Molnar and Brown, the insights into the life and work of Sir Charles Sherrington. This paper is available for free download on the internet. I request you all to consider downloading it and reading it for your knowledge and your reading pleasure. Here I will only try to summarize the paper. So, this is insights into the life and works of Sir Charles Sherrington by Zoltan Molnar and Richard Brown. So, what are the major contributions of Sir Charles Sherrington that led to the award of the Nobel Prize? Some of these are repetitions. We have already said this, and I am again saying this for emphasis. So, if we repeat something many times, that means that they are crucial, critical, important information points. So, perhaps the most important contribution by Sherrington was the definition of the synapse. In 1897, Sherrington defined the synapse as this specialized junction, the nexus between two neurons through which communication between neurons happens. Further, in a stroke of brilliance, he also suggested that the presynaptic neuron can have both an excitatory or an inhibitory effect on the postsynaptic neuron. That is, the input neuron can have either an excitatory influence or an inhibitory influence on the output neuron, which was a deep insight that you could push the output neuron into inhibition was a revolutionary thought for that age. His work essentially influenced later studies on neurotransmission. Some of those who discovered neurotransmitters went on to win Nobel Prize on their own. For example, Bernard Katz, Arvid Carlson. Some of those who discovered the mechanisms by which communication happens between neurons or communication happens at the synapse. Those who discovered these mechanisms went on to win Nobel Prize on their own. On top of this brilliant conceptual contributions, Sherrington also worked on reflex circuits and work on spinal circuitry. Sherrington worked on spinal reflexes and their role in the coordination of movements. He essentially discovered key reflexes and described them, one of which is the flexor reflex. This is not entirely a monosynaptic reflex. This is something that involves multiple neurons perhaps, but that is less important. But the definition holds importance. Consider that this is a nail, for example, and my right hand is the cat's paw, for example. The cat is keeping its paw on the nail. When it is doing that, immediately there is going to be a withdrawal. Flexion of the limb happens, causing withdrawal from a nociceptive. Nociceptive means a painful stimulus. Nociceptive stimulus means a painful stimulus causing that. That is one. Second is, suppose there are two paws with which they are walking on two sides. One of the paws is encountering this nail, then the other paw will extend to provide an additional support. One paw will withdraw, that is the paw that is encountering the nail will withdraw, the other one will provide additional support. This is called as crossed extensor reflex. That means there is a crosstalk happening between two sides of the body, two sides of the brain. So, it is not entirely a primitive or an elementary behavior. Quite an involved and an advanced behavior that was described by Sherrington. In addition, Sherrington also proposed the law of reciprocal innervation, by which when one muscle contracts, its mechanical opponent or the antagonist is inhibited. This has critical consequences for movement science, that it leads to smooth movements, that is, it has minimal jerks. For example, imagine you are trying to press both the accelerator and brake of the car simultaneously while you are driving. This would lead to a situation in which it is extraordinarily difficult to control the car. This is not an ideal or a suggested method. It will cause jerk in the car. Jerk means, in engineering parlance, jerk means the time rate of change of acceleration. So, it is not a desirable situation. So, it is desirable to either accelerate or brake without involving the other, which is how you have smooth ride. For some reason, biological organisms appear to prioritize smoothness over several other parameters of movement. So, that is a philosophical question as to why does the biological organism prioritize smoothness over other parameters of movement. That is a discussion for another day, but for some reason biological organisms prioritize this, and this is achieved through this reciprocal inhibition and the reciprocal innervation, by which one contraction essentially causes inhibition in the other neuron, other muscle. Also, Sherrington described decerebrate rigidity, in which muscle tone means, in this case for the purpose of this class, baseline muscle activity. Baseline activity of the muscle increases when the cerebral cortex is surgically removed, or when a transection is performed below the level of the cerebral cortex. Suddenly, this leads to a situation in which there is an extraordinary amount of tone in the extensor muscles, so much that the organism is able to support itself on its own limbs. Its own body weight is supported by its own limbs, and sometimes even perform complex behaviors like locomotion, walking type of behaviors. Of course, it is a little bit more nuanced than this, it is a little bit more detailed than this. Sherrington theorized, and other scientists have theorized later on, that this is perhaps due to the absence of inhibitory influences from the descending circuits, from the descending channels. There are several theories, the details of this are beyond the scope of this class, but it is sufficient to show that in this case spinal cord and brainstem essentially can indeed generate coordinated motor responses like walking, locomotor like, etc. This has critical implications in improving our understanding of muscle tone and motor control disorders. So, there are disorders of the neuromotor system that cause an increase in muscle tone, an abnormal increase in muscle tone. So, it improves our understanding of these problems. And Sherrington essentially introduces the notion of motor unit, which is essentially the motor neuron and the set of all muscle fibers that it innervates. And he showed that several inputs, both excitatory and inhibitory inputs, converge onto a motor neuron, and the motor neuron essentially acts as a synthesizer of this information, leading to the coining of the term motor unit convergence that happens in this level. So, essentially this laid the foundation for improving our understanding of muscle activation and coordination. He also showed that muscles also function as sensory organs. In addition to motor organs, muscles also perform sensory function, detecting changes in length and tension. This was a theoretical proposal that he had. It was later shown by other scientists that this is indeed true, but he could theorize this purely because of his brilliance. Without having detailed experimental data, he was able to theorize that muscles somehow must have this sense of length and force. It's a brilliant insight that was later shown to be true by other scientists. And he studied muscle spindles and proprioceptors, which are essential for motor control, and his work essentially practically defined the concept of proprioception, which is the body sense, the ability of the body to know where the limbs are, for example. Of course, he was a brilliant humanist, mentor and a teacher. Many of his students went on to become brilliant scientists. Some of them won their own Nobel Prizes. His lectures and his textbooks influenced generations of neuroscientists and neurophysiologists. Even till date, his books and his contributions and his papers continue to serve as landmark cornerstone works in the field of neurophysiology. No wonder that Sherrington is rightfully called as the father of modern neurophysiology. So, his major contributions are, of course, we saw in the other video that this is the integrative action of the nervous system, and the other work that was also famous was mammalian physiology, a course on practical exercises. So, he received the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, which he shared with another brilliant scientist, Edgar Adrian. So, with this we come to the end of this video. In this video we reviewed the paper by Molnar and Brown, which is the Insights into the Life and Works of Sir Charles Sherrington. This paper is available for free download on the internet. I request you to consider downloading it and reading it for your own improved understanding and information. Thank you for your attention.